On April 2, 1890, Windsor officially became an incorporated town. Between that time and the turn of the 20th century, downtown Windsor slowly but steadily matured as a center of local commerce and agricultural processing. While businessmen replaced many of the wood-framed storefronts from the 1880s with brick buildings, these new stores were often no larger than their predecessors. Instead of tearing down its frontier past to build the large business blocks of dawning prosperity, Windsor simply recreated its older buildings in brick. Thus the struggle for identity continued as the town remained stuck between two epochs. The largest commercial building in Windsor's historic downtown dates to the late 1890s, when Otis Hill and Harrison Teller worked out an agreement with the Windsor Lodge of the Independent Order of Oddfellows to build a two-story business block. The Windsor Mercantile Company occupied the first story, while the Oddfellows owned the second floor as their lodge hall. Despite its small size and lack of a boom before the construction of the sugar beet factory, Windsor still posted impressive shipping statistics with the Greeley, Salt Lake, and Pacific, and later Colorado and Southern railroads. In 1899, for instance, business transacted at the Windsor Depot accounted for $120,000, a princely sum equivalent to over $3 million today. And for the consumer, downtown Windsor offered everything one could ever want. As George Rowe noted in the December 28, 1893 Greeley Tribune, "Why go to Greeley when you can get a 20-pound pail of jelly at the Weller Cops Merchandise Company for only 80 cents. The 20th century dawned brightly for Windsor. Construction began in early 1903 on a factory to process beets into sugar. The facility produced its first pound of refined white sugar on November 6, 1903. In 1905, the individual northern Colorado sugar companies at Loveland, Greeley, Eaton, Windsor, Fort Collins, and Longmont merged to form the Great Western Sugar Company, which rose to become one of Colorado's corporate titans. The Windsor factory was one of Great Western's busiest, consistently exceeding its 600-ton daily capacity. In 1908, the company doubled the factory's size. The opening of the sugar beet processing factory had an immediate and profound effect upon Windsor. In 1900, the U.S. Census found 305 people living in Windsor, a number that had been nearly stagnant for years. By 1910, the town boasted 1,780 residents, a 484% increase in a single decade. A new generation of entrepreneurs remade downtown Windsor. Foremost among them was Charles Albert Yancey. A native of Virginia, Yancey arrived in Colorado in 1883 at age 20. He found work on a ranch near Windsor and soon began to purchase and rent land of his own in Weld and Larimer counties. In 1888, Yancey moved to Windsor where he constructed a large livery stable. He began his business with a single horse, but soon boasted a stable of 35 horses. Yancey claimed that he sold more harnesses than any other dealer in Fort Collins and Greeley. With the opening of the sugar factory, Yancey demolished his Main Street stable and used the proceeds to construct a number of buildings to the west in the 500 block. Completed in early November 1905 at a cost of $7,000, the Yancey block at 517 through 519 Main Street was the largest and most architecturally sophisticated building the entrepreneur ever constructed.
For 18 years, Yancey has been connected with the development of Windsor. He's one of the most successful liverymen in this valley, and anyone with the least acquaintanceship with the man may readily guess the keynote of his success. It is progress and thorough attention to details. He believes that what is worth doing at all is worth doing well. That is why the Yancey block is the most substantial improvement Windsor can boast of, and the building is not surpassed in appearance by any in northern Colorado. Roy Ray.
Despite the sugar beet boom, Many downtown businessmen worried about the lack of permanent housing in Windsor, a problem that had plagued the town since its pioneer days. The opening of the sugar factory made the situation significantly worse.
The beet workers from other districts are coming to Windsor from all directions, and the office of the sugar company was crowded last Monday with Germans looking for a place to rent. No less than 20 families applied to the sugar company for homes and were sent away. Think of it, 20 families, and still they are coming. Merchants, wake up! Do you know what keeping these people from you means to you? Roy Ray.
Beyond its economic ramifications, the sugar beet industry fundamentally and permanently altered Windsor's society and culture. In their desperation to find cheap but reliable laborers who understood the sugar beet, the sugar companies brought hundreds of families of Germans who had previously settled on the steppes of Russia to northern Colorado. In 1910, nearly a third of Windsor's entire population identified itself as Germans from Russia or the children of Germans from Russia. By 1920, the percentage was even higher. Germans from Russia first settled in Windsor in November 1902, appearing in their broad caps, felt boots, and long sheepskin coats. The reaction among residents seems to have been cautious, confused, but largely positive. Certainly, Windsor businessmen sensed opportunity as Germans from Russia poured into town. But xenophobia was hard to overcome, especially when in a matter of a couple of years, Windsor found its schools desperately overcrowded and German spoken as often, if not more often, than English. Tensions between the native Anglo population and immigrant German Russians rose during World War I. Except for the town's staid retailers, such as the Windsor Mercantile Company, most businesses became expressly American or German Russian. Ethnic segregation in its many small downtown groceries became a Windsor tradition, with the last German-language store closing in 1977. German-Russian identity was more intense and persisted far longer in Windsor than it did in perhaps any other northern Colorado sugar town. Because of the housing shortage, newly arrived German-Russian families built their own houses and their own neighborhoods. Thus, to live in Windsor was to live in a German-Russian town, with German-Russian neighbors and even German-Russian merchants. This led to a long-standing joke that the name Windsor was more accurately pronounced Windsor. Eventually, Germans from Russia became prominent Windsor merchants, and many German-Russian surname families dominated downtown real estate and businesses, such as the Manweilers, Bruners, and Ehrlichs.